Hey guys, Scott here. Big day for Nikon ZF shooters. The highly anticipated firmware 2.0 has finally dropped. It's got a ton of quality of life updates that I and a bunch of others have been bugging Nikon about for the last 6 to 8 months. Things that have shown up in newer Nikon cameras that have sadly been absent from the ZF. And so I'm going to run you through what I think are some of the really key updates that are going to make your shooting experience way better on the Nikon ZF. We're going to walk through what these things do, where to find them in the menus, and how you can apply them to your photography. So let's get right into it. Here we go. Auto ISO shooters. This is the day you have been waiting for. Nikon has taken our feedback over the last year and they have heard our cries. So if you're an auto ISO shooter and you've been frustrated by this dial and kind of the kludgy workarounds that you have to do, here's what you need to do. You need to set auto ISO on in the menu. The C position of this dial now becomes the auto ISO setting. If you have this on, it will use your auto ISO ceiling settings and it will pick an ISO somewhere between base and your ceiling. If you want to switch into a specific ISO, simply turn the dial to that ISO value. If you want to switch back to auto ISO, simply turn the dial back to C. Now, a huge boon here is that C is the only locked point on this dial. For the workarounds that we've been having to do, I had to have my dial set to 100, and then sometimes I would bump it, taking it out of the bag, wouldn't realize it, and then my ISO values were all screwed up. This is huge. We can set it to C. We don't have to worry about it ever getting bumped. And then if we need to dial our ISO in manually, boom, turn the dial, it's set. You want to go back to auto ISO, boom, turn the dial, it's set. Let me just say as an aside, if anybody from Nikon is watching, this is the feedback loop that customers are interested in. You have experienced photographers coming to you going, hey, you have a great product and you could make it exceptional with one little tweak. The Nikon community, their team, the engineers have taken our feedback, especially on the ZF, and they have given us fantastic updates. Just look at the Z9, and we're up to firmware 5 on the Z9. They have just pumped features after features and updates that we're asking for, and they're doing it all for free. This is an ideal relationship between the customer and the brand. So kudos, Nikon, whoever was responsible for this, whoever pushed it into the engineers' laps, we thank you. We are rejoicing for firmware 2.0 for our ZF today. Anyways, enough of that. Let's keep moving. Let's keep talking about the new features. One big addition that a lot of folks have been waiting for, especially since the launch of the Z6 III, are these new cloud-enabled picture controls. So you've got Nikon creators putting their JPEG looks up online, and through the Nikon mobile app, you can connect your camera to the app, and then you can easily download and share your own picture controls through the app with other users. This will be great for folks who are looking for JPEG only output from their ZF, sort of like people do on Fujifilm cameras with those film sims. We have a lot more creativity and control in creating them in NX Studio, and now we have a lot easier way to share them with our friends and other photographers moving forward through the app. So is it something I'll use? I don't know. We'll play with it. We'll see. But for now, it's actually something that a lot of people wanted, so it's cool that the ZF gets to be included in that. So one of the biggest new features that a lot of Nikon shooters have been waiting for is a new subject detection mode, which is specifically for birds. This on the Z8 and the Z9 has been a huge addition. The subject detection is much stickier. It's much faster to find smaller birds in the frame than if you're on auto or you're on just general animal. It understands bird shapes much better when you're in this mode. So time will tell if it's as sticky, if it's as good at tracking as the Z8 and the Z9, but super excited to see that added. This is one that I've been waiting for a long time. The focus confirmation box, especially in manual focus mode, is very thin and very hard to see on the ZF. Nikon added some extra thicknesses on the Z8 and the Z9. They've made it over here. So you're just going to come into the A Focus Custom Setting menu, and it's actually A10 Focus Point Display. You hit right on the D-pad to go in here,
and then you come down to focus point border width. And if you go right on the D-pad, you actually have 3 widths that you can choose from now. So 1 is the original, very thin width, 2 is a little bit thicker, and 3 is a really chunky boy. You can see it here, the red box, that's the max thickness. And if we come back in here, set it to 2, that's kind of a happy medium. I actually have been using 3 on the Z9. I may try it here, but I think 2 will also work pretty well. 3 is really helpful on bright sunny days when you just can't find that thing and it gets shoved off into the corner somewhere. Now when we're in manual focus mode and we want to zoom in to confirm that focus, we're moving it around, we're making sure everything is nice and sharp. All we have to do is half press the shutter button and we come right back to our composition instead of having to hit minus, 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 minus. Now you may have also noticed a new feature here. As we're zooming in, we can now zoom in to 400%, which shows us even more of our image, finer details, make sure we really nail that focus. Now, this is not a problem that this camera has ever had, but it's really nice to have if you're doing tripod work and you want to make sure that you are absolutely critically focused. One new thing you'll notice here in manual focus mode is as we are adjusting the focus distance, we now have the actual distance represented numerically above our bar. So we can see in meters it's displaying the actual point that it's focusing at. You can change this from meters to feet in the settings as well, if you so choose. To change from the default meters to feet, you would come into the setup, find distance, units, D-pad over, and select feet. Now when we want to focus, we see that we have feet instead of meters. So another huge win for manual focus shooters are huge improvements to the non-CPU data lens section. So you're going to come over to the wrench, which is the setup menu. You're going to scroll down until you get to non-CPU lens data. This is where you will enter information about all of your lenses if they aren't chipped. So for instance, this is a 58mm Helios lens. It's a maximum f2 aperture, and it's set as my number 2 lens as I'm scrolling through these various non-CPU lenses. So this is actually the old information. I haven't come in here yet to update this. This just happened to be a lens that specifically they had a focal length for that matched, and they had an aperture that matched. The cool thing here is I can actually come in here and name it Helios now. So as I'm scrolling through the list, I'm like, is that 58 my Helios or is that a Voigtlander? Now it's really easy. You can just add lens names, and we can enable this choose aperture to record option. And if we toggle this on, as I scroll the front command wheel while I'm shooting a dumb manual focus lens, the camera is actually showing me that I'm changing the aperture, even though I'm not. The aperture will be controlled by your lens itself, the physical control, but your EXIF data will be correct if that's important to you. The other awesome part here is we used to have a list to choose from for focal lengths and for apertures, but now we can set them down to the millimeter in terms of your focal length, and for the aperture we can set it to the decimal. So we can have the exact EXIF information that we're looking for, even on a dumb lens. This is a huge get for folks who are interested in what manual focus lens did I shoot that shot with, what were my exact settings if that lens doesn't have a chip. Good job, Nikon. Thank you so much for adding this. Manual focus shooters are super happy about this. Something for tripod shooters that they've been asking for a long time, and it's in a lot of other Nikon bodies, is exposure delay mode, which is now located under D5. So what a lot of people do is they'll have their camera on a tripod and they use the self timer at like 5 seconds or 2 seconds because they want to eliminate camera shake after they push the shutter button. But 2 seconds is a really long time. Your camera will settle far sooner than 2 seconds. So now we can come in here and set an exposure delay mode from 0.2 seconds up to 3 seconds. For every shot that you take, this will apply. You don't have to turn the self timer on and off. So if I were to set this at half a second, there would be a half-second delay between me fully pressing the shutter button and the image actually getting captured for every single shot. Now, this isn't really something that you'd want to leave on all the time, but it's very handy for tripod work when you want to shave off the time if you're doing different exposures, trying different angles. You don't want to wait 5 seconds every single time for your self-timer. Really good feature from other Nikon cameras, and I'm super glad that they added it. So a new way that we can customize our command dials would be to go under Controls, Custom Control Shooting, and then go into the command dials here. Go into Exposure Setting and go over to Manual. And what we see here is an extra option at the bottom that says Display is Details. So we're going to hit Display. And now this is showing us our two dials, our back dial and our front dial, and what they can control. So two new things that they can control are ISO, awesome, thank you Nikon, and exposure compensation if you want that easier to access than the top dial of your camera. So either of these dials can be set to any combination of these 4 settings, which is aperture, shutter speed, ISO value, and exposure compensation. Great get. Thanks, Nikon. A cool new feature that's been on the Z8 and the Z9 for a while is called high-res zoom. Now, this comes with a caveat on the ZF. What it does is it allows you to digitally zoom in 2 times your focal length, and does it by doing way of virtual digital zoom. So you can consider it a parafocal zoom because your focus isn't actually changing. It's just digitally zooming in to your shot. That's at the very bottom of your video recording menu. It defaults to off, and you can only use it if you're recording in 1080p, because what it's going to do is punch further into the sensor and leverage basically that 4K capability of your sensor. So you turn it on here. If you come over to video customization, there will be a high-res zoom speed option on G7. So 0 is the default value, and you can go slower or faster depending on what you want to do. These give you different looks. Sometimes you want a slow pull to like a product type shot. Sometimes you want a faster zoom if you're doing wildlife or something like that. So you really need to play with these, figure out what you like. But again, you can't start in 4K mode and turn this setting on. It's grayed off. You can't do anything with it. You've got to be in 1080p, and that will allow you to leverage the zoom. I would personally find this not as useful on the ZF. I prefer to shoot everything in 4K 30. So not being able to do that is a bummer when I can do that on my Z9 and folks can do that on their Z8. Just something to think about. It's a cool new feature that's there, and if you don't mind shooting in 1080, it's a good option for you to maybe splice into 4K video, but you've got 1080 power zoom splices in between there for added effect. Hey, as always, I hope you found this stuff insightful, educational, entertaining. The best way you can let me know if you did, leave a thumbs up on the video. If you want to consider subscribing, I wouldn't mind that, but don't feel obligated to. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you. Thanks for watching.